What is going on, guys? Check it out. We've got another ARRMA in the mix here, the Granite BLX. This is very exciting because I've only had the brushed versions. Now I finally get to check out one of the brushless versions, and of course I'm going to take you guys along with me on my journey with this vehicle. Let's just check out the box really quick. Of course, cool looking ARRMA graphics everywhere on the box, but what really caught my eye when I was looking over the box is we already see some Horizon influence getting into these kits. We've got the EC5 plug on here. Pretty neat stuff going on. Still shows the tactic radio. Where's that tactic radio? Over here. So let's see what it looks like in the box. Let's get the box top off and instruction manuals. Yep, definitely got to read those, guys. Check those out when you have a second. I want to get right to the truck itself, and it is kind of packed away in here. Check that out. It's got a nice little piece of plastic just to protect the body, so you get to scratch it up first. Let me pull this thing out of here. Definitely like the look of that bright orange on there. It looks like we've got a bag of tools. And of course, here is the radio system here. So let's just check this out. Let's just make sure it comes with a tactic radio system, or they switch it out. Yes, it still has the tactic radio system in here. Someday, I bet we're going to see a Spectrum radio in here. But if you've seen our videos before, you know that I'm actually a pretty big fan of this tactic radio. It's a basic radio system, but it works out so well. It's got a great little foam grip on there. Nice handle on it, the trigger works smooth, and it's got your basic trims on there. Let me sit down for the rest of this here. So I'm not going to go over in crazy detail, but it does come with a few basic items you're going to need to do a little maintenance on the vehicle. But let's get right into the truck itself and check this out. I love what ARRMA is doing with their graphics. Just awesome stuff here. Love the orange, love the kind of like breakaway camo pattern, grays and silvers and blacks going on in the back of it. Already pre-decaled from the factory. Check it out. And it's got the little rubber tethers on there for the body clips. Love when they give you those. It makes finding the body clips so much easier when you're out there bashing and you got to change the battery. Love the body on this ARRMA. Look at these body clips off. All right, now we could take a close look at the chassis. And we've seen this before because we've reviewed the Granite as the Mega version with the brush system in here. We've showed you guys the ARRMA Sentin Mega. I did that review. Dean did the Granite 4x4 review. I did the ARRMA Sentin. So I'm going to throw some cards up there so you guys could check out those other reviews later on down the road. I'm going to spread those out through the video here, so click on those later. But definitely we are going to take a little bit closer look at what's going on here. And the big thing is it now has the brushless system. We've been over this chassis setup before. It is a really easy layout to work on. Really neat stuff going on as far as if you have to get this thing apart for maintenance. You can kind of go and just pull out the drive shaft and pull this section out to get to the motor. Getting to the front and rear differentials is super easy. Just a few screws. Really easy truck to work on. I really like it. I like the open battery tray area over here. It accepts a lot of different types of batteries. Just some Velcro straps hold it in. But again, back to the brushless system here. It is the BLX 100 speed controller. You see the 3 wires. You know it's brushless. There's that EC5 connector, which means you could go and run this thing on an 11.1 3S LiPo battery pack. The connector could handle that current. The speed controller does have a fan on here. And then over to the motor, it's a 3200 kV 4-pole motor, so it should give you plenty of power, plenty of torque, and it's cooled by this massive, absolutely massive heatsink on here. That's pretty wild to see something so big on a basher vehicle such as this right out of the box from the factory. Pretty neat stuff going on, but love the lugs on these tires. Nice firm tire, and actually it's got a really firm insert in there, so it shouldn't really grow as you're ripping on the throttle. Love the chrome rims on here, very nice looking, and oh, the suspension feels really good on this truck. They are composite shocks, they're oil filled, but they got a really great feel to it. They even have these little shields on the front to help protect the shock shafts from dirt and debris, which can get into your shock and wear away at the O-rings, but that should really help protect it. Love the arms on this particular truck. They are really well braced. The webbing on here is really well set up. Just everything about this truck screams bulk and durability. I mean, the tie rod ends really bulky on it. The shock tower's really thick here. Bumpers, they have a little impact absorbency to them. So that should help protect the truck as it's tumbling around, because you know you're going to go out and bash this thing. You're going to go crazy with it, and it's going to take it. And this is very cool as well. The wheelie bar out back, because we're just going to be ripping wheelies nonstop with this thing, I bet, because we're going to run it on 3S. And it's an adjustable wheelie bar, so you can adjust the height of the wheelie there. And everything is just very cool. There is the metal geared servo. We've got twin bell crank steering. The differentials, just going over this stuff really quick because we've been over it before. Differentials feel super smooth on this, guys. It is a geared differential, grease-filled differential, but the outdrives on here and the drive shafts themselves are plastic, but all heavy-duty, super thick on this particular truck. Now let's flip it over at the bottom of the chassis here. Nice, solid unit. I mean, there is just no flex in that chassis whatsoever. We've got these high mud guards on here that will help protect dirt from getting into the chassis as you're ripping on the throttle. And wrapping this thing up here, we've got a slipper clutch in here that will help protect the driveline from shock when you're ripping on the throttle, landing at full throttle. That slipper clutch will absorb that shock to the transmission. Adjustable body mounts. Just lots of cool stuff going on here. We've got aluminum braces for the hinge pins. The driveline runs on all ball bearings. Just very cool stuff that you would expect from ARRMA. ARRMA is just coming at the RC scene strong, and trucks like this, just developed for backyard bashing and having a lot of fun, is really gaining a lot of attention from the RC community. Now, that just leaves going and running this truck. And you know what? I think the BMX is going to be the perfect spot to go run it. I know what you guys are thinking. Greg, what did you do to the truck? Well, I will get to that, guys, but I have to start off with, this is an amazing truck. It is so much fun that I went out a number of different days testing this thing because I kept going back for more and more and more. And I had enough information to do the review on the first day of driving it, but I went back. I had to keep driving this truck because it is such a fun monster truck. ARRMA did an absolutely amazing job with this thing. I mean, I had fun with the mega version of the Sentin, which is a similar platform to this, but with brushless in here and 3S, wow. Just flat out wow. It is so cool to be behind the wheel of this truck. It just delivers so much action. All right, let's break down performance, guys, like we normally do, and we're going to start off with the steering, and it does great. The servo, it's got plenty of torque, there's plenty of physical throw, so this truck gets turned where you need it to go. I mean, when I was running it, it was extremely cold out, so the ground was pretty much frozen, so there was some push, but, you know, when you got into, I went and drove on some grass, and I mean, it definitely just gets turned right around in grass, and I'm sure that once you go into loamier dirt, it'll be just fine. But there was some push, obviously, on the hard ground. You know, it is what it is. It's like, you know, winter here in New England, so the temperatures were pretty cold. Let's move on to the speed of this thing. This thing is fast, guys. I'm sorry, didn't throw the speed meter on it, but you know what? It rips wheelies non-stop, and that is a blast. It definitely uses that wheelie bar out back. If you punch the throttle, it'll just lift the nose up and it will go. You know, if you roll into the throttle, then you can get some really cool speed runs going on. And I did that out back of the BMX track. There's a nice long straightaway, and I was ripping back and forth where I could, and that was a lot of fun. Ripped through some leaves. I mean, just leaves flying up everywhere. This thing is just powered perfectly. Now, let's move on to handling and jumping. And, you know, even in the cold weather, it was going through the bumps nice and easily on the track. Jumping, it just flies through the air, and it landed a lot of the jumps. I mean, a lot of the jumps were just launching it off the BMX track jumps and, you know, landing nice and smooth on the downsides. It was just so cool to see, and it was better than my expectations of it. So that's what I really liked, is this truck performed, you know, above and beyond what I thought it was going to. I thought it was just going to be a simple basher truck. You go out, you know, bounce around in the backyard, but the handling is there on this, which, you know, is totally cool to see in a basher vehicle. And now, finally, let's get to the durability. Now, I want to say, again, I was running it in 24-degree weather here in New England, and it was freezing. I was freezing cold. My hands were numb. And so what you see here actually didn't happen on the first day of testing. What I broke on the first day of testing, and this thing is just covered in mud. I should really talk to you guys about mudding it too, is I broke the wheelie bar. Actually, I broke both wheels off, and then, you know, after I broke both wheels off, I went and removed the wheelie bar completely, and that's when I went and broke the rear bumper. And this happened when I was jumping. I came down literally on just the wheel on a 24-degree day, which makes plastics brittle. And so, you know, when I was flying off the jump, I knew it was going to break before it even hit, and it did. I mean, just the angle that it came down at. And so, you know, I broke one wheel off, and then I went over to one of the big berms, and I was skying this thing off one of the big berms. And that's when the other wheel broke off when it landed on the other side. You know, so I was getting the full weight on just the wheel, and so that broke off. You know, it's a $12 part, I believe. And then after I took the wheelie bar off, I went jumping it off that berm again. Again, I was just going to see, I was testing the limits of this truck, basically, at this point. You know, usually I drive really responsibly with the cars, but I wanted to see how far I could push this thing. And so I kept just launching it off the berm at the BMX track, and it cracked the rear bumper. And I mean, but this is like extreme, like just non-stop jumping. You're going to go and treat this thing responsibly, you're going to get a ton of life out of it. I think it's going to be very durable for you. Now, you're probably wondering what happened to the front of this machine. Well, once again, I was pushing the limits of the truck. I wanted to see what it could do, and I was launching it backwards off of one of the biggest jumps at the BMX track and doing backflips with it. And I got a little carried away, and it went and kind of veered off and hit a rock that was on the landing, on the backside of this big, huge jump. So that's when the front steering carrier broke, and it's, you know, just a few bucks for that part, but, you know, it hit a rock. It hit a huge rock. And so I can't fault it for that. That's my mistake. You know, if I landed it, it probably would have been just fine. And then finally, I want to talk about mudding this thing. I mean, this thing weighs a lot more right now than when I started because it is just covered in mud. But and it was cold this particular day that I was running. It was 39 degrees, but no overheating issues, even with carrying all the extra weight. I mean, this thing's full of mud. And again, just so much fun, just throwing mud all over the place. I had to go home and take a shower when I was done because I was covered in mud. Camera was covered in mud, but it was so much fun. The ARRMA Granite BLX delivers on all the action. It is durable. It is fast. If you are looking for a four-wheel drive brushless monster truck, this should definitely be on your list.